Well, imagine never having to worry about hurricanes and energy impact. Imagine never having to gas up your car again or recharge your cell phone. An endless supply of energy that does not harm the environment and won't cost you a dime. In fact, it comes from thin air. My next guest says the technology exists. Here to explain how it works is Sean McCarthy. He's CEO of a company called Storn. It's a technology firm based in Ireland. Good to have you, sir.
Good evening.
This almost sounds too good to be true. Now, I know you're a genius, but if you could explain it in layman's terms for me.
What we've done is, about 3 years ago, we developed a way of constructing magnetic fields so that when you travel around the field, you suffer a net gain of energy. This energy, we have proven over the years, doesn't come from any other source. What that means in terms of a product is quite literally that, you know, if we deploy this as a replacement for your car engine, you'll never have to put gas into your car. We replace a battery in your cell phone, you'll never have to recharge your phone.
But where is the energy coming from, Sean?
Literally, there has never been an identifiable source for the energy. What this technology is doing is directly contradicting one of the basic laws of physics, the principle of the conservation of energy. So what we did last week is to issue a challenge to the world of science to ask them to come and to test it and to let the public know that this technology exists.
So, and they were impressed by what they saw. There's something about the magnetic images or presence that makes this work. My immediate reaction to that was, is there any hazard, danger, cancer-causing type vulnerability here, anything like that?
No, I mean anything that has electrical energy in it generates a magnetic field. The kind of magnetic fields we're looking at here are very low level, and the technology itself is shielded, so there is no discernible magnetic field outside of the technology itself. Our key focus at the moment is to start a process of very in-depth validation from the scientific world, which will start later this year, and we expect the results of that to be released towards the end of next year.
You realize if you're onto something, Sean, you've driven the automobile business out of business and a host of others that depend on battery and fuel juice.
I don't see it. I think this is an opportunity. I mean, I think that one of the key issues that we face are polluting energy sources. This isn't going to put the automotive industry out of business, and quite the opposite. We see this as a huge opportunity for, you know, cleaner automobiles, for less toxic batteries.
All right. You're a private concern right now. You're deliberately not doing this to raise money, just to increase professional recognition, by which you can later on get funding, right?
Yeah, what we've said is because claims like this have obviously been made in the past,
right.
We've distinguished ourselves from other claimants by first of all saying, during this process we're not going to attempt to commercialize. This needs to be an honest review from the world of science. We will neither raise money nor license the technology until the world of science has fully acknowledged that the results, have published the results of their technology and shown this to work. Our key focus at this point is simply to allow the public to see that this technology is available. We'll look then at commercialization after that.
All right, Sean McCarthy, thank you.
Thank you.
Now to another good idea, and imagine a machine that could power your house for free. Well, that's exactly what two Australian inventors claim they've developed. Using magnets and a battery, their new generator has been described as revolutionary, and foreign investors are lining up for a piece of the action. Chris Allen reports.
So, John, this is the machine?
Yes, this is it, Chris.
What's it capable of?
Well, it'll power a house. The machine will provide sufficient electricity to run a house and have power to burn.
It sounds too good to be true, but inventor John Christie is convinced his machine will change the world.
So, John, basically you're saying this machine can produce 5 times as much power as it consumes?
Yes, it does. This one, exactly as we see it, it does. And in fact, it can produce more than that.
Once kick-started from a battery, John and his partner Lou Britz say this prototype will run for years without stopping, generating 24 kilowatts of power a day.
You don't get more revolutionary, I think. I mean, we're talking about something that has the capacity to change the way that the world produces its electric power. It has a capacity to change the way that cars are propelled. You can replace the combustion engine, in fact.
John, these are big claims. Are you sure you can live up to them?
We don't really need to live up to them, Chris. What the technology speaks for itself.
I mean, a householder could buy one of these machines and install it in his garage and power his house forever without buying another kilowatt from a retailer. I mean, that's how serious it is.
Steve Brassington is an independent electrical engineer. He's seen the machine and backs up everything John says.
It's revolutionary. That's the only way to describe it. I think the technology, it's not bending physics, it's just using principles that I guess are commonly in use in power generation today in a different way. These guys have thought outside of the square.
Basically, it's magnetic attraction and magnetic repulsion that provide the movement or the moment of the motor.
Can you understand why some scientists are sceptical about it?
There is no physicist or engineer who has looked at our motor or has looked at our figures who says it doesn't work.
Lou is an electrician and John a businessman in Cairns in far north Queensland. The two unlikely inventors have been tinkering with their machine for 6 years. They've applied for an international patent and have been swamped by people wanting a piece of the action.
These are the coils. We mentioned the coils don't get hot.
Local businessman Alex Roma is one of the many offering money to help develop the generator.
If it proves up to be what they say it is, it certainly would be something I'd invest in.
John has also spoken to millionaire inventor George Lewin, the man who came up with the Triton workbench and who's now setting up a fund to stop Australian inventions going overseas.
There's an opportunity here, I think, to share an invention with the world that is beyond anything that we've ever contemplated before.
Since the 8th century, scientists have been trying to develop a machine with the power to change the world, able to produce a limitless supply of energy. Leonardo da Vinci declared it an impossibility. Others, including Johann Bessler in the 18th century, claimed success. They were dismissed as charlatans. But is the search at an end? Has the holy grail of science been discovered in this Dublin business park? The businessmen behind the claim say this test rig proves their theory. As it turns, it's making more energy than it's using.
What we found is that when you construct certain magnetic fields using permanent magnets, the kind of magnets you have in your fridge, that certain constructions of these magnets cause certain fields. When you travel around the field, stopping and starting at the same position, you gain energy.
The trained engineer who set up Stiorn says the results were found by accident 3 years ago. 8 people and organisations have tested the theory, but they won't say who. The company's claims have drawn a surprising response from physicists.
We get daily, emails, telling us that somebody's going to come around and beat us up. We have had certain people involved in the project phoned up by a physicist who told this person to watch their back. We've had bloggers turn up to the office. I've had one blogger turn up to my home. It is amazing the depth of feeling, and this is fundamentalism from a scientific point of view. This is literally the reaction to our claim here is a religious reaction. It's the only way that I can put it in a way that people will understand.
Undaunted, they put this advert in The Economist, inviting scientists to join a jury of 12 to test their findings. The counter on their website suggests nearly 5,000 have replied. Stiorn will fund the research as long as the scientists agree to publish their results.
We would like them to be as widespread as possible, ideally geographically, but it's very important that they are the best people in the field. There's no value in us doing this and then ending up with a jury that we can be told, well, actually they're not the most qualified people. So we have to get the most qualified people we can get. Otherwise it won't hold water.
But why are so many so sceptical? Because it challenges the very foundations of physics.
There are 2 fundamental laws that we consider in thermodynamics, the laws of thermodynamics. And the first law says that you cannot create or destroy energy. And you can only convert it from one form to another. And the second law of thermodynamics says if you put energy into a system, you can't get all of that energy out. But there's always a possibility that we will find something extraordinary. But I have to say I'm a bit sceptical that we are going to find something that will break all the observed laws.
The testing could take years, but it's still a high-risk strategy. Steorm staff know they face global ridicule if the verdict is damning. The prize for success is a priceless patent, which would end our dependence on oil and potentially extinguish poverty, famine and drought. Now the jury must deliberate. Robert Nisbet, Sky News, Dublin.
Lonnie Johnson is what you would call a prolific inventor. The engineer holds more than 100 patents, inspired to create ever since he was a child.
I was always curious about how things worked. I would take my siblings' toys apart to, sometimes I put them back together, sometimes I use parts to make something else totally different.
When he was a teenager, Johnson won an engineering contest with a robot he built while growing up in the segregated South.
We were the only black school represented, but Linux was such an impressive piece of work that we were able to walk away with first place.
Years later, as an engineer for NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, Johnson helped design the Galileo mission to Jupiter and the Mars Observer projects. But Johnson's biggest claim to fame was engineering this toy, the Super Soaker squirt gun. More than $1 billion in sales later, Johnson had the resources to work on his real life's mission, finding ways to power the world without polluting it.
That was my strategy because I was having a lot of trouble getting investors or people to support the research that I wanted to do in the hard science area.
The engineer started 2 companies, located them in what was once a blighted Atlanta neighborhood, and hired fellow scientists to work on his mission.
We've done some things at the research level that a lot of people have predicted were impossible and could not work.
Johnson and his team spent 7 years developing this lithium-air battery. A battery, he says, provides 10 times more energy than the most powerful batteries now on the market.
Whereas the auto industry now is trying to get to 100 miles on a single charge, you'd actually be able to charge your car and drive up to 1,000 miles on one charge nonstop. So that would eliminate the reservation that a lot of people have about electric cars.
Johnson has tested the battery's ability in the lab time and again. But in order to get the battery to work in an electric car, it needs to be larger. And scaling it up takes big money.
We could actually put it in a car and drive a car, I'd say 12 to 18 months if we had adequate funding.
But Johnson says companies with far more resources are starting to catch up.
Now we've got large entities like the National Laboratories and IBM and others who have very deep pockets of starting to focus on this technology. So we've got to run faster to stay ahead.
The other potentially world-changing invention he's developed is this engine. The JTEC converts heat to electricity. Popular Mechanics magazine awarded the JTEC its breakthrough prize in 2008. And the National Science Foundation has said the JTEC has, quote, a good chance of being the best thing on Earth.
It took us a while to convince people that even the engine was real and it could work.
Johnson says the engine, which pushes hydrogen through a membrane, could power entire cities once it's scaled up.
If we had a way of converting heat from the sun to electricity as cost effectively as we can burn coal or gas or natural gas to produce electricity, then we would be using the sun a lot more. This would really, literally change the world if we're successful.
Johnson has received some funding from the Department of Energy and support from the Department of Defense, but not enough to get the project commercialized. That, he says, will take several $1 million.
Everything depends on resources. I could have an engine working inside of a year at this point.
So far, Johnson has mostly gone it alone. It has been a major personal investment the 61-year-old hopes will pay off in his lifetime.
If it doesn't, it won't be for a lack of trying.